God, it's Friday. It's the third day already in the 11th month of 2023. December is knocking on the door and will soon be answering that door. Good morning. Welcome to 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations here on Channels Television. This is Business Morning. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's do the Friday show before we head off to the weekend. We begin with oil prices. As usual, prices were a little changed on Friday, but headed for a second week of losses as supply fears driven by conflict in the Middle East, a key producing region, eased, while the demand outlook at the world's top crude importer, China, remains clouded. Brent crude futures rose 29 cents, that's about 0.3%, to $87.14 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 36 cents, that's about 0.4%, to $82.82 a barrel. China's manufacturing activity unexpectedly contracted in October. The official purchasing managers index, as the PMI, fell to 49.5 from 50.2, dipping back below the 50-point level, demarcating contraction from expansion. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics showed this. On Friday, a private sector survey showed China's services activity expanded at a slightly faster pace in October, but sales grew at the softest rate in 10 months, and employment stagnated as business confidence waned. Meanwhile, geopolitical concerns remain in focus as Israeli forces on Thursday encircled Gaza City, the Gaza Strip's main city, in their assault on Hamas, its military said. But the Palestinian military group has resisted their drive with hit-and-run attacks from underground tunnels. Both benchmarks gained more than $2 a barrel on Thursday. The Brent was on track to post weekly losses of about 4% on Friday, while the WTI looked set to close lower by 3% from last week. The United States Federal Reserve held interest rates steady on Wednesday, while the Bank of England held interest rates at a 15-year peak. The stable rates kept oil prices supported as some risk appetite returned to the markets. Still global market now, but grain. Chicago soybean futures rose on Friday, heading for a fourth consecutive weekly gain, and expectations of strong demand from China and worries about the weather in top exporter Brazil, while corn and wheat edge lower. Soybean supply is ample for now, but low rainfall in northern cropping areas in Brazil is causing concern and lifting prices. Dry conditions in the region, which starts to harvest around January, are likely to reduce yields, tightening global supply from around April onwards. So the most active soybean contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade as the CBOT was up 0.4% at $13.33 for a quarter of a bushel, and that's up 1% this week. Soybeans have risen 6.5% from last month's 22-month low of $12.51, but remain down around 12.5% from the start of the year. China's soybean imports are likely to stay high through the fourth quarter, taking 2023 purchases to an all-time record, according to traders. In other crops, CBOT wheat fell 0.1% to $5.65 a bushel, was down 1.8% from last Friday's close. Corn CVI slipped 0.1% to $4.69 for half a bushel, was down 2.4% of the week. In wheat markets, the Buenos Aires Grains Exchange cut its forecast for Argentina 2023-2024 crop to 15.4 million metric ton from 16.2 million metric ton, citing adverse weather. Well, let's come to Nigeria now. Yesterday, the National Assembly passed the 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget. However, the chairman of the House Committee on Appropriations says that the budgetary provision for the presidential yacht has been moved to the student loan. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is urging President Bola Tinubu to call political parties in Bayelsa to order ahead of the November 11 governorship election, following insightful comments made by the deputy governorship candidate of the APC in the state.
Those against should say nay.
After speedy consideration and budget defense of the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Bill received from President Bola Tinubu, both chambers of the National Assembly dedicate the final plenary of the week to its passage. The 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget passes overwhelmingly in both chambers. While the supplementary budget sent to the National Assembly by the President proposed 5 billion naira to purchase a presidential yacht under the capital expenditure of the Nigerian Navy's budget, the House Committee Chairman on Appropriations says it has been removed and reallocated.
Student loan was 5 billion naira in the budget, but now we have increased it from 5 to 10 billion so that our students can be able to access that facility in order for them to go to school and to be affordable for them. This will be the action.
So no more what?
We don't have that yet anymore.
He further explains some other adjustments made to the budget.
Police formation and command will give them 50 billion, while the FCT, we have about 100 billion naira. You know, FCT is very important because we want to make sure FCT can compete with any city in the world. While Office of the National Security, we know how important that office is. Initially, the initial budget was 27 billion, but currently we have increased their budget to 50 billion naira. You know, we have a serious housing deficit in this country, and the Mr. President agenda, he wants to build as much as he can. So we have approved 100 billion naira for Ministry of Housing, and that's what he actually did.
Meanwhile, back in the chamber, the House reacts to possible incitement and threats to security ahead of the Bayelsa governorship election, following a viral video of the deputy governorship candidate of the APC inciting violence.
The House resolves to urge His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to call all party candidates to order before the election. Urge the Inspector General of Police and the National Security Advisor to caution the parties and cause the extraction of undertakings from all party candidates that will guarantee peace in Tuambras and Bayelsa State and a violent-free election on 11th November 2023.
In the meantime, following the statement of the Chief of Army Staff expressing worry over classified documents ending up in the public space, the House of Representatives is calling for forensic storage of security information. The House, through a motion by Honorable Stanley Olajide, decries the leakage of security information, which it fears is affecting the fight against insecurity in the country. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
That's right. That's, naturally our focus for this morning, that National Assembly passing that supplementary budget, 2.1 trillion supplementary budget. And I know there's been a lot of reactions being that, wow, so the National Assembly can actually consider and pass anything at all in such a short time. First reading, second reading, and passage. That means that they can work. So why does it seem like it takes time for some other issues to be given attention? You know, sometimes it seems the National Assembly or members of the National Assembly are too busy for it. But we'll also look at, of course, some of those additions with Mr. Ojudemezue, the managing consultant and chief executive officer of Flame Academy and Consulting Limited. Joins us virtually from Kigali, Rwanda. Mr. Ojudemezue, thank you for taking our time from your busy schedule for us this morning.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm quite grateful to be on this platform. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would like to get your perspective, you know, on that first reaction. A lot of Nigerians have been talking about it, especially since yesterday, to say, I didn't know the National Assembly could work so fast. It's such a short time.
My dear friend, good morning again. When it comes to spending Nigeria's money, and when the 3 tiers of government agree on the spend, you can see things work so fast in this country. As we keep saying, the political class, they may argue, fight, do whatever during the political stage, but once it comes to coming together to spend, and they have an agreement on what to spend, you see speed in government machinery working. And that's somehow very paradoxical and also very interesting at the same time. So congratulations to the National Assembly for working so fast. But looking at that budget, one can have only a mixed feeling. Nigeria does not need to get to the point where we declare bankruptcy for us to know that we have to come down our fiscal cliff, for us to know that we have to slow down our spending. A budget, national budget in a year of almost 22 trillion naira for a country that barely manages to raise actual revenue of about 7 to 8 trillion is a very sad situation. Debt service to revenue gap, ratio is getting more and more dangerous. And we're coming to that point where Nigeria will enter a real and imminent debt trap. When do we consider some form of structural adjustment and more careful spending? And when you see the way these figures are jumping from yacht to student budget and all kinds of permutations, you will feel that people are in a hurry to recoup election funding expenses.
Well, I knew you would touch on that yacht issue. But on the other hand, we see that 210 billion for wage award, which, according to reports, some workers have affirmed receipt of 400 billion for cash transfer, 200 billion for seed and agricultural inputs. So this seems to have a human face. Does it make us happy? Does it, affirm, or, justify is the word I was thinking of. Does it justify this supplementary budget when we see these human face factors added to it?
And that's why I told you the budget for me has, makes me have a mixed feeling, because you see, when people want to take away money, they do something good, one or two things good. In Nigeria, we've seen government, make a huge amount of budget for infrastructure. And but the point is, what is the percentage actual spend? What is the value for that spend? When you announce one or two good things that will make the budget acceptable, what about the whole other things that are unacceptable and seriously unimportant at this point? This is November and December is coming. How are you telling me that the budget of 20 trillion has so run fast in security that we're spending another 600 billion, in national security? So what happened to the budget that Buhari ran before handing over to the new APC government? And then you see 200 billion agricultural production what? Between November and December, is this Nigeria's agricultural season, or are they just trying to bring in seedling? Was there no such budget in the past, in the earlier budget for the year? What is so emergency about this that we cannot plan it in January to December, next budget round? So for me, the only reasonable thing I see there is the wage award to cushion the horrible impact of the fuel subsidy, which was inevitable anyway. To see how Nigerian workers can have some kind of a fair life in the midst of hyperinflation that we are experiencing right now. If you remove that 200 billion for the wage award, everything else for me, from the 400 billion conditional transfer, who are we transferring this money to? What data do we have for this transfer payments and all of that? We all know very well that even Nigerians don't know who is a Nigerian. Chadians, Nigerians, and so on penetrated into Nigeria. So what data do we have to know those who need these so-called families or households who need this support? How do we get evidence that more than 50% of that budget, if at all, everything is done, goes to the real households, not political groups and the same bourgeois who have held us down and killing this country with overspending? How are we sure that the 5 billion to students are getting to Nigerian students and not students in APC political caucuses and so on? These are the questions that beg for answer from the billions of money spent in buying cars for the presidency. I wish that the Buhari fantastic and nice cars that we all knew before he left have been sold off, or they are no more fit for getting into an imminent, in fact, almost here with us, a debt trap that is facing us. Can be so careless in spending. We are spending billions of naira to buy cars for the office of the wife of the president. Who does that at this time? It shows me that this government, in as much as I admire their bold steps in trying to reform the economy, this government is not thinking in a different manner than the previous government that we've had. Their body language shows a mixture of willingness to do something different, and the way we are announcing spending now shows that we have not yet realized that Nigeria is in a deep hole of debt trap. It's quite sad to me, actually.
We'll get to that debt, but I mean, talking about the vehicle, we see that 7.5 billion is budgeted for procurement of vehicles for the State House. And I mean, it also brings up the issue of why can't we use the Nigerian-made car? If at all we have to buy cars, at least it will move the fund around. You know, yesterday I attended an event talking about public sector reforms, and somebody said, well, we've been doing reforms in the public sector almost every year or every administration. When do we expect to actually see these reforms? If the public sector is asking Nigerians to cut their coat and bear with the tight season with macroeconomic headwinds, what example are they showing that they're also feeling and leading by example?
My dear sister, you have captured the point exactly. In Nigeria, only the poor will keep tightening their belts until their skeleton begins to pain them, while the governments are getting both bigger and bigger with pot belly, with attendant diabetes, high blood pressure, and showing that they are reformists in any form. With this supplementary budget hurriedly approved, within less than 2 months to the end of the fiscal year, I can bet you that this government is preparing for a big spend in the next 4 years. Big spend that a little of it can reflect in real infrastructural development. Big spend that a bit of it can be used in something positive. But a whole lot of waste is coming to happen again. Unfortunately, we don't have the revenue to waste. So we borrow to a point where debt service to revenue ratio is now 90%. Do we get to the point where we now announce bankruptcy, like our neighbors in West Africa have announced, and then we now begin to know that we're in a big problem? So it is not justifiable to even buy these vehicles at all. Whether and if they must buy it, we have local brands like Innocent and the rest of them. We can use those. One, because they are much cheaper. If at all we need these vehicles, they are much, much cheaper, and we can save money to pursue real issues to this, in this country. What has happened to the government's quick desire to create space for the micro, medium, and small enterprises to grow, knowing that that's the only way we can create sustainable and growth and prosperity for all. If you put all the monies together that they plan to waste now, you can drop 5 billion in every on this platform. I don't know if you can still hear me. Looks like I'm frozen. Let me know if you can still hear me, please.
I hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. So I had said it before. The things to do to make this country work are very simple and yet strategic, but we don't do them. If you collect some of these wastages we're having in this supplementary budget and drop within either the Bank of Industry or a committee of banks, bankers committee, and set up a quasi, either a commercial development finance institution to be disbursed in 100 SMEs that bring back entrepreneurship to attack, non-oil exports and so on. This country will see the impact in the foreseeable future. But we won't do that. We'll keep changing cars. We keep doing technology enhancement in the offices of our ministers and so on. We keep, sharing money that we call conditional transfers. To whom we share the money, we don't know. The data with which we share this money, we don't know. Nigeria is not seeing a serious reformer yet. And yet I know that this government, if they choose to work, can do it if they choose to. But they're not looking at the way this government came up. I'm not surprised that there's this hurry to pull money out of this country for no justifiable reason. This 2.17 trillion for me is not necessary, apart from the 200 billion being given to workers to cushion the horrible inflation we're seeing in the country, and the very poor 30 30,000 minimum wage is not now up to even $30. And yet, the things that we almost import in this country are going up the roof. That's the only thing I justify in this budget, the 200 billion for workers. Outside that, everything else is, for me, a scam, because we had the budget that we planned earlier in the year, 20 trillion, with revenue in that budget being less than 7 or 8 trillion. They planned 9 trillion though, but as I know today, Nigeria have not grossed up to 8 trillion in revenue. So with a 12 trillion deficit budget, we're adding 2 more trillion to it. Who will pay this money? What capacity are we building in this economy to be able to pay this debt? What infrastructure are you seeing that will reform this economy and create more space for tourism, for business development and so on, that will bring up more tax payment, more non-oil export for us to be able to pay this? Now, and meanwhile, even the oil that we depend on, we are producing less than 1.4 million barrels per day today, not even able to meet our OPEC quota. And we're not looking at non-oil export as an immediate replacement. It's quite sad indeed, and I think this government needs to do a soul search and be sure that they are here for good in the next 4 years.
All right, Mr. Davis, I hear you about the debt servicing, a worrying one for Nigeria. I mean, we're using almost 100% of our revenue for servicing now. We don't see the revenue going up. So that means that percentage still stands, if not even growing longer. But I remember the annual meetings. The IMF has said that actually Nigeria doesn't have a debt problem, even though they're kind of worried about the servicing. But how do we, perhaps this is one of the reasons why the federal government is comfortable, going ahead in this trend, if we have international bodies saying that Nigeria does not have a debt issue.
According to my dear sister Chimamanda that we know, that is the danger of a single story. The danger of a single story. All right? They massage our ego that we don't have a debt issue because they're looking at debt to GDP ratio being still below 30%, and then we say we can always borrow more. But nobody's asking what is happening to our revenue. Why has Nigeria continued to have a very poor performing revenue generation due to a lot of criminal and corrupt activities going on within our country? And that revenue will never change, even if you double tax all the companies, because the people you are taxing are still the same people. And again, many Nigerians are also not willing to pay the tax because they're not seeing government performing their duties. Every Nigerian in this country, you must note, is a government of its own. People provide their own electricity, they provide their own security, they provide their own infrastructure, they provide their own water supply. People provide their roads in their communities. So what does government do for goodness sake? So every Nigerian, including me, I'm a government of my own, local government, state government, national government, in all ramifications. So the revenue issue is a big issue that cannot be resolved because even the economy itself is structured in a way that is not revenue generation. We are still focusing on only oil and gas to raise revenue for this country. The tax revenue between the tax collection and tax rendition to government, so much loopholes happen in between. The tariffs at the port, whether it's Nigerian immigration, customs, and so on, poor accountability. A serious government will first of all, close all these loopholes. And when we see the revenue going up, you can now go on your spending spree. This is not the time for political jamboree. Sadly, that's what we're beginning to see. So we have another 4 years of big headache, of big grammar. People speak grammar like I'm speaking now. At the end of the day, nothing happens. People in government should please note that Nigeria belongs to all of us. If we kill this country, we have no other place to call our own. May God help us.
Yeah, so God help the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we also have the power to help ourselves. I think God has given us the power to do that, if we will. Mr. Davis. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mr. Ojude, Managing Consultant and Chief Executive Officer of Flame Academy and Consulting Limited. And we wish you safe travel back to Nigeria from Kigali.
I'm not coming back any soon. I have a lot of work I'm doing here in East Africa.
You're running away from your responsibility in Nigeria, Mr. Demezi.
I'm doing that while you're on this platform. I'm not less Nigerian than anybody else in this country. God will help us.
Amen. Thank you so much, and do enjoy yourself right there. All right, operators in the betting and gaming industry in Nigeria have been asked to embrace evolving technologies and efficient regulation in order to move the industry forward. The call was made by the Director General of the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, Mr. Larry Gbajabiamila, at the close of a two-day international gaming conference organized by the Commission in Lagos. Participants at the conference charted core strategies towards reinvigorating the lottery industry and envisioning it as a substantial source of revenue for Nigeria. I must add that with the way things are right now, a lot of Nigerians are turning to lottery to see if luck can help them out. But let's bring you that report.
Registration processes using technology.
As the International Gaming Conference winds down, participants and industry experts explore innovative solutions to tackle inherent challenges and strategies to redefine the lottery and gaming industry in Nigeria.
The major challenge we have in the industry at the moment is lack of a uniform KYC processes.
We've learned a little bit in the United States about how to reduce gambling harm. You have to give people tools, and you have to give regulators tools in order to be able to protect consumers while still having a sustainable industry.
In his closing remark, the Director General of the National Lottery Regulatory Commission admits that the conference has lived up to its expectation.
Discussions and ideas exchanged during this conference have illuminated the path forward for us. We shall return to our drawing table as we work with the relevant agencies to ensure this happens so that the Nigerian gaming industry will be a powerhouse in the gaming industry worldwide.
The conference culminates in a gala night, offering participants a memorable evening of entertainment, networking, and celebration.
He who says his mother will not sleep, you too will not sleep. Currently, these mothers will sleep and leave you with nanny.
The highlight of the night is the presentation of awards to individuals and operators who have made remarkable contributions to the growth of the industry in various categories. In recognition of their compliance, performance and growth, Premier Lotto and 1xBet receive awards for the Operator of the Year in the core lottery and sports betting categories. After the awards, the dance floor opens for all. Beyond the conference, there's much work to be done to reposition the Nigerian betting and gaming industry for higher profitability and socio-economic development.
So that's it. One industry that seems to be getting attention in the midst of economic headwinds. But now, like 2 days ago, the British International Investment, the BII, they pumped in about $26.5 million into the agricultural food chain in Nigeria. Their focus is mostly storage, and they are working with AFEX. We brought you that report then. And after the announcement, I had a sit down with two of the executives to get more details, and also the confidence that they have, to bring in $26.5 million at a time like this, when it seems foreign investment is running away from Nigeria because of the FX challenges and what many have described as policy inconsistency. Well, let's hear what they have to say in this chat that I had with them. $26.5 million is actually a lot of money, to invest. And this time, I know you're investing in AFEX, but I mean, generally you're investing in Nigeria. And at this time, when there are talks of inconsistency in policies and obviously lack of transparency in some areas, what do you hope to gain, and what has given you this confidence to put $26.5 million into the Nigerian system?
Well, you're right that $26 million is a significant investment, particularly in the context of Nigeria today. But I think it's important to recognize that British International Investment is the UK's development finance institution. We've been making these type of investments for 75 years. We've been making these type of investments in Nigeria for 75 years. This is what we do. We go into countries and invest in countries where we think there are significant opportunities to make to invest through the private sector and have a significant development impact. And so from that perspective, $26 million, we invest about $2 billion a year, so $26 million is significant, but it's not out of character to what we do.
I think for us as BII, as Nick mentioned, we focus on impactful developmental projects. And therefore, when we engage with a country like Nigeria, we want to support the growth of the private sector and ensure that we support job creation, poverty reduction, and a lot of the SDGs in our country. So as far as this investment is concerned, as you know, post-harvest losses is a major issue in Nigeria. And if we are able to contribute through this investment in reducing post-harvest losses, it will be a significant win for us. In addition to that, as you know, AFEX is supporting hundreds of thousands of small-scale farmers. It's key to highlight that these are farmers who do not have the capacity to be able to get funding from the formal financial systems. And AFEX is able to support them, and not only with agricultural inputs, but also with agronomy practice support. And that is resulting in significant increase in productivity for these farmers. In addition to that, providing storage facilities enable them to be able to control the manner in which they sell their products. As you know, during harvest period, prices come down and there's a lot of losses because of the lack of storage facilities. With these storage facilities, the farmers can spread the time it takes them to sell, they can reduce losses, and they can make more from their increased production. So for us, this is the benefit. It's supporting the food security agenda of the government, also a key focus for us as well as PII.
They already have some storages. We've been talking to them, so we know that. Are they going to build these storages and work with the farmers, get the farmers to put? You just paint a picture for us what BII is investing into. What do you hope to see? What are some of the timelines you hope to see some of these things?
So as we mentioned earlier, this funding is going to be deployed into developing 20 modern tech-enabled warehouses. And these are larger warehouses than the ones the company has now. And I think for us, when you have these facilities, it enables AFEX to be able to support more farmers. So what we're looking for is not just the increase in storage capacity, it's just also the enablement to be able to have more farmers that they are supporting. In terms of timing, there is no time to wait. We've done a lot of work up front before with the announcement today. So I expect that in a very short space of time, the money will be disbursed and you will start seeing the implementation of this project immediately. There's no time to waste. This is an urgent need for our country. And we're supporting AFEX because they have the capacity to be able to implement on these objectives. That is for us what we're looking for. So we expect that in the next 1 year, you will be seeing AFEX announce the opening of some of these new warehouses.
attracting FDIs in the midst of call for a more consistent policy environment, ease of doing business, and to make it worse now, we have the FX shortage, which makes the naira, the value of the naira, kind of unpredictable. How does that come across to you, and how have you been able to overcome that to invest this amount in the Nigeria food chain?
So let me start with the good news. I was last in Nigeria just about a year ago, so before the election, and I think it's clear that under the new government, that steps are being taken to make this a more attractive place for foreign direct investments. Some of the difficult decisions that the government were required to make, they have made. So progress is being made, particularly. Obviously lifting the fuel subsidies, some of the changes they've made in the FX market. But I don't think the job is, we still have a long way to go in Nigeria for it to be a really attractive place for mainstream investment. We at BII, we're a development finance institution, so our job is to invest in countries like Nigeria, and our job is to do that consistently and patiently and take risk in doing so. For most commercial investors, that's not what they're not required to take those sort of risks. So they're going to look purely at the commercial opportunity and the political and economic environment that supports that. So I think the good news is that that progress clearly has been made. Some of the difficult decisions have been made. I think the biggest single challenge from an investment perspective for somebody looking at Nigeria today is still the question of FX and the reality that you have, an official rate and you have a parallel rate. There's a shortage of supply of foreign currency. And really, I think that makes inward investment very, very difficult in most sectors. But as I said, I think the government clearly are taking some steps. They have some plans to execute what is a very difficult problem, because you have to try to move to a freely floating exchange rate at the same time as you have to protect the community, the people in the country from the consequences of devaluation and inflation. So it's a very difficult balancing act that the government is on, but I think they are taking the right steps. And there's no doubt that in the long term, if this country creates a sort of an ecosystem that's conducive to foreign direct investment, there is the potential to unleash a significant amount of that investment, because this country is a large, rapidly growing population, and with obviously huge development needs in a whole host of different areas. So there is the potential to attract significant investment if the right steps continue to be taken.
As a long-term solution, we know that the president has talked about, securitizing dividends from the NLNG, and then we're expecting some $3 billion from Afrexim. But I mean, obviously these are short-term. The long-term still remains maybe boosting our crude exports or our non-oil exports.
So I'm certainly not an expert on Nigeria or how the oil industry and the oil exports work here. What I do know is, first of all, it's critically important to maximize the value that you're getting from oil exports. And we know that the government it's a difficult problem, but we know the government are taking steps to increase production and increase the supply of dollars from that source. In the longer term, you're right that building export industries is a huge issue in this country. Capturing more of the value chain from for example, in agriculture, having greater manufacturing both to export as well as to substitute for imports. That will take a while, and in order for that to happen, you have to have an investment environment that's conducive to that. But again, I think that we're definitely seeing some steps in the right direction.
Well, we see Nigeria attracting a lot of, especially the startups, attracting the attention of investors now. Are we giving the investors what they want? Are we being accountable to the funds that have been invested? Do we carry the brand, the Nigerian brand, as we should, to make investors trust us for tomorrow. So it's a new thing now. We're attracting the funds, even though I think, was it Kenya or South Africa did do more in the last count. But as Nigerians, would you say, from the private sector, we are asking that the government should keep the environment right to attract FDIs, but are we Nigerians, the companies, the individuals, the private sector, are we doing enough to attract and sustain the FDIs?
I think the first point I'll make is that if you go around many countries in Africa, it's very clear the energy, the drive that the Nigerians have. It's unique. I've traveled to many countries in Africa. Nigerians are very resilient, they are resourceful, and they are very driven. And I think those are really, very significant virtues that Nigerians can contribute to businesses. If you look at many parts of our economy today, whether you are talking about the telecoms industry, you are looking at manufacturing, or the banking and finance industry, even agriculture, you will notice that there are many Nigerians who are actually operating in these various companies, and they are doing a very good job of supporting the business. So in my view, Nigerians are indeed supporting the businesses. But as Nick mentioned, the environment needs to be more supportive to actually facilitate the FDI we're looking for. If you have the investors who are long-term focused, who understand the environment, you can have enough Nigerians with the right drive, character and integrity to be able to support the business. But the environment needs to be supportive.
But I'd reinforce what Benson said about the importance of obviously good due diligence and thorough due diligence, and the importance of strong governance. And without those things, it's very difficult to attract investment from international investors.
So on Wednesday, 10 a.m., you can join AFEX to get their own side of the story, how they will assure us that that $26.5 million will be felt. But it's also important to know that the 26.5 million naira is not just for Nigeria, it's for Nigeria, Uganda, and Kenya that they have to use. But I mean, imagine dealing with the issue of 50%. If we can reduce it to 10-20% of post-harvest losses, know what that would do to food supply in the country. Of course, keys into President Tinubu's vision of, that call for state of emergency against food insecurity and all of that. Well, it's time for the market, but we'll go to the markets first, make some money, and then we'll be back for the markets. Well, the market is closer to me today. Will has a seat right beside me to give us updates of what happened in the market. I wonder, Will, I think the profit is getting closer to me, having you so close to me.
Yes, but unfortunately, yesterday, and you're actually putting on the color of red right now to tell you that the market profit taking a setting in it. Okay. So investors, they're kind of cautious, they're afraid. The fear and the greed is a very thin line, and they don't know when to cross that. And so it's easy for people to just pull back when they feel, oh, is the market going to crash? Or possibly it's 2008. Coming back. It's just the fear of 2008. So it's just that 2008. So I think you understand what is happening in the market right now. So caution is back to the market. But
which of the market now is it? Equity?
It's the equities market, definitely.
Oh, after we hit the 70,000?
Yes, after we hit the 70,000, investors are a bit cautious right now. They're just pulling back, trying to take profit, so they're not leaving all their investment out in the open. And it's quite fragile.
They're crashing.
They're called crashing. But we're talking about the bonds market this morning. But we did see very quickly quickly before we go there, the sentiment report showed that 84% buy and 16% sell. So it's not all bad for equities. We're going to see how the market closes
I think it's
today.
just a normal. I mean, the market hit that high, a height it hasn't reached before, 70. You obviously expect people to make the most of it. I mean, I bought a stock for 15 naira and now it's 20 naira. I mean, let me just pull out.
So it's just for Japan Gold. If someone had invested in Japan Gold, say $1 million naira, you know, at the current rate that is at 42% gain, they probably made about over 400,000 naira. So imagine just how many trading weeks, 2-3 trading weeks.
You think I should take profit? Christmas is around the corner.
Of course, take profits and make merry. So we're just going to kick off with the bond market, where it remained bearish. That means average yield rose by 3 basis points to 15.4% across the benchmark curve. We're seeing the average yield contracting at the short end of the curve there, and this following demand, but increased slightly at the long end of that curve. You see that 2053 paper there due to sell-offs. Now, trading in treasury bills market was, however, calm, seeing yields remaining unchanged, slightly unchanged. So also for the Omo market. But we're going to bring in quickly Caleb Alimi, is the chief dealer at Providence Bank, to give us more insights as to what's going on. Good morning, Caleb. It's good to have you on the program.
Yeah. Good morning, Will. Thanks for having me.
Caleb, very quickly, yesterday something happened. We're seeing that's something we've all been waiting for. The CBN started clearing the FX backlog for banks and airlines. But the question is, we did see the close for the Naira, the exchange at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market, that's NAFEM. It closed at 793.28 to a dollar. That's a 0.9% depreciation. Well, we asked what next for the currency, you know, that some people have described as trading irrationally as a man in an asylum.
Thanks, Will. So, like you said, it was positive developments in the FX markets. CBN has started delivering the FX forwards. A number of banks have gotten, most of their backlogs cleared, and more banks are also getting more of that this morning. The expectation is that we will continue to see a contraction or an appreciation of the Naira, especially in the parallel market. In the NAFEX market or in the NAFEM market, what you see there, that you said there's slight depreciation, that is expected maybe because of where we are reporting trades currently. However, I think the main metrics to look at, which I'm sure the government is also looking at, is the parallel market. You've seen that drop from the recent highs of about 1,300 to $1 to around 1,125 or thereabouts. We expect that as the backlog continues to get cleared, we'll continue to see that appreciation in the market. And obviously, it's going to reflect in the NAFEX or NAFEM market very shortly.
Talk about the overnight lending rates now. We're seeing it rising. Yesterday, I think, closed about 20%, 20.6%, following debit from the Omo auction. Can you give us more insights as to what's happening in that space?
But what we've seen is that the central bank has been more contractionary in its approach. There's been recent Omo issuances. There's been more or less, let's say, back-to-back Omo issuances to mop up the liquidity from the system. And as of yesterday, the impact that you saw in interest rates is that, liquidity has really shrunk from over 800 billion, say, like a week ago, to just over 100 billion. And that's what's impacting the interbank borrowing rates at 20%.
So does this trickle into the average man walking into the bank to borrow money? Does this have any impact on how much they can borrow, the cost of borrowing from the bank currently?
So eventually, it will impact the prime lending rates that banks use in, giving out loans to customers. Once the borrowing cost for banks is high, you expect that investors are also going to demand high rates, by depositors, and then borrowers are also going to have to pay that high rates. What the CBN has done is they found that the translation between the NPR and the common man and the real market has not been very efficient. But with the recent developments where there is no cap on what they call the standing deposit facility, and then banks can, place all their monies with the CBN at the 15.75, that has seen a better transmission into interest rates generally, and that's what you've seen has impacted NTB rates, what has impacted OMO rates and all of that. So eventually it's going to impact borrowing rates as well. Borrowing costs are unfortunately going to go up.
Thank you so much, Caleb Alimi, Chief Dealer, Providence Bank, for sharing your insights on Business Morning.
Thank you for having me.
So, Ini, we're just expecting, well, hoping that the banks don't go, interbank rates don't go higher and higher.
Yeah,
and then
but I think one good news that came out of that you just had is that CBN has begun clearing its FX backlog. And, you know, I guess eventually that will feed into the value of the Naira, you know, and maybe build, because, I mean, even the conversation I had with British international investment, there's also the fear of FX shortage for foreign investors.
No, true. I was speaking to people, some investors, and they said, oh, we got this great potential in Nigeria, but how do they tell investors that, oh, this market's coming to it, but the only thing is, you might not be able to take your money out.
Then why are you coming in the first place?
That's it.
Yeah, unfortunately, but we do hope that this move and the news, you know, will move things in the right direction.
Definitely.
Thank you, Will. See you at 1:30. All right, now we head to the next market, which is the crypto market. Now to see what's happening right there. I do know that, well, it's still greedy. It's been good for the crypto market for a bit. Bitcoin has been doing well. So for those of you who wanted to get on board and you did not make up your mind on time, unfortunately, this may not be a good time to get on board, but perhaps you just wait. Profit taking might just give you that edge that you need. But let's look at the numbers there. Bitcoin is still surging this morning. It's 35,000. There you have it. It's up more than 2%. And then the Ethereum, that's the sentiment fear greed index. But we're looking at the numbers now, the prices, and we see that Ethereum has dropped 1.76%. BNB is also up. Cardano down a bit, but I mean it's generally a green market at this time. Let's have Gilbert join us now to talk about some of the happenings in the space for the week. First of all, I think the most interesting thing, obviously, is the price of Bitcoin. We've seen this. I don't know if he was expecting. Hi, Gilbert. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning. I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Were you expecting this surge this week on Bitcoin?
Yeah, obviously, I was expecting this surge, and there are a couple of reasons for it. First of all, this week, that was Monday, Bitcoin started by printing a bullish peanut. So a bullish peanut is always a sign that after an asset has had a period of consolidation, it's supposed to begin an upward trend. And all I was expecting was for it to break out of the consolidation triangle. And once it breaks out, we are going to have this little surge, which we had. And with this happening, as long as we stay above this triangle, there is going to be more of an upside continuation. Probably we're going to see 36, 37, 38 on the balance of probability. And once this happens, we are going to see alt also have some nice rally as well. So the surge in price wasn't really a surprise. And the euphoria as well of retail investors also expecting the ETF approval anytime from now, with more institutions also filing for ETF. All of these, the excitement and the technical levels gave us this price surge which we saw in the market. And it's really interesting. We always love when the market turns green.
Very interesting. I would like to talk more on that, but we're almost out of time. I cannot help but talk about this Sam Bankman-Fried that has been found guilty on all charges. I know you do have a lot of thoughts about this, Gilbert.
Oh, yes, the 1 month trial came to an end with his friends turning against him. Even the manager for Alameda Research, who was his friend, and they were also in a relationship. He was found guilty of all the 7 count charges, which include committing fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud against FTS customers, conspiracy to commit fraud on Alameda Research, and committing fraud on Alameda Research lenders as well, conspiracy to commit fraud on security, conspiracy to commit fraud on commodities, and also conspiracy to commit money laundering as well. All of this, he was charged guilty he was guilty as charged. But the judge actually said something which I found to be interesting. He said cryptocurrency may be new, some bank fraud may also be new to the space, but fraud like this is as old as human nature. So even though Alameda insists, even though some bank fraud insists that it was business gone bad and not necessarily him going straight out to commit fraud, I really think this is actually a lesson for crypto entrepreneurs that are out there. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It is, will you still be useful 10 years, 20 years from now? So regardless of what we do in the market, we should know that the eyes of the law is on us and you should do what is right. I think this is a lesson for cryptopreneurs who are out there at the end of the day.
That's it. An unregulated or a decentralized market doesn't mean that the arm of the law cannot catch up with it. Thank you so much, Gilbert Jopata. And I know you're looking forward to the weekend. Let's see what Bitcoin will hit before we come back on Monday.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. And well, for all the crypto investors, this is the time for you to smile. It was good for you to smile. But that's it on the program, Business Morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. The program starts, the cycle starts all over again on Monday. Meanwhile, 1:30, Will Ibong will be here. And tomorrow, 7 p.m., if you miss Laddie Williams, you can catch up with him as he will give you a summary of what happened in the different market, except the crypto market, tomorrow at 7 p.m. That'll be Saturday at 7 p.m. I'm off for the weekend and off for the month. See you. Bye-bye. I'm Ini John McQuarrie.